So it's just me here today. I'm here at my recording studio, or my recording closet, if you will. So I woke up this morning, and the person who I originally had scheduled wasn't able to make it. So instead of trying to scramble and try to find somebody at the last minute, I decided I'd do something that I haven't done before, which is, first of all, try to record right on this thing and start my darn timer, which I never seem to remember to do right. But I wanted to sort of just go over why I'm doing this project and what the purpose of it is. And maybe that's going to be a little half an hour monologue, something I haven't done, and people can maybe get something out of it. So the this was I've been trying to do this weekly show since about, I guess, May, and I have a real podcast that I was doing along with this on something called Computing History, the history of computing. And I did 5 episodes of that. And each one took about 40 to 60 hours to do, about 20 to 25 minutes. And it was a huge time investment. So I thought maybe I can do something that I can commit to on a weekly basis. I intend to go and get back to that eventually. But there's a number of things that I wanted to get done that are still not done, and I'll eventually get back to that. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I'd really like to progress more on it. But this really came out of a earlier podcast that I was doing with Larry last year, and we did about 10 episodes, and there really wasn't too much of a response to it because I didn't really promote or anything. It was just more just for me, and I guess that was kind of what it was when I started it this time, and this is maybe episode 18 now. And what it's kind of turned into, I would guess this is right now maybe pivot number 4 for it, is it's trying to be based on, I guess the closest thing would be William Buckley's firing line. And William Buckley was a conservative, and he basically started the modern conservative movement, one of the celebrities. But he had this talk show where he would invite various guests on that were that he on a different kind of political spectrum as him. And instead of arguing with him or trying to talk down to them, he just let them speak. And I would guess that if you are, some arch conservative, you would sort of listen to them and say, like, do pearl clutching and, use smelling salts and saying, oh, look at all these radical ideas this person is proposing, what a horrific society they'd like to live in. But he didn't really say that part out loud. And so in retrospect, what it is it's a very sort of a valuable documentary of the times, the late 60s and early 70s. And he's got a lot of leading thinkers on, and really sort of gives them a nice forum to go into great details about what they thought and did. And I really sort of respected his style of doing that, and I thought it was a sort of much needed breath of fresh air in how we go about having conversations. And I think that the conversation itself is sort of a lost art, that style. And this also goes on top of how we deal with friendships in society. Because I think that, or I should say I know that, given how we classify relationships and we classify, let's say, sexuality, it limits the types of emotional connection that we can have with other human beings. So what I mean by that is if I want to have a deep emotional bond with you because you're a good friend of mine, under sort of how we live in society, that is reserved for who you're titillated by, who you want to have sex with. And if that person happens to be of the same gender as you, then you will be labeled a homosexual for doing so, even though you don't have any sexual fantasies about the person. You don't really desire to kiss them or anything like that. You just want to have a meaningful relationship where you have emotional support from the other human being. And I think that has been led to a lot of psychological ill in society, because I think that we need to have an engaging and supportive community for our own public health, in the same way that families are extremely important for the raising of a child. The family of your friends and loved ones is extremely important for the health of an adult. And we should certainly separate the sexual desires from the other forms of love, as we do with children. We don't say, well, you love your children, so you're some kind of sexual pervert. Of course not, right? We separate those, and those should be separated. So I thought that for a long time, and I was wondering what that would look like in practice. So what I started doing about what it was, maybe 2 months ago, is trying to sort of demonstrate that and say, okay, I've thought this for a long time. What does it mean in a material reality, right? So I started calling up some of my friends and saying, hey, well, would you just sort of have a conversation with me, maybe for about an hour on Instagram? And we'd start out with about 10 to 15 minutes of just sort of chit chat. Then you go into a topic of your choosing. Then we just sort of round it up and just see what happens. And I was doing it not only for kind of an experiment of this hypothesis of what I think is missing in friendships, but also for my own personal health, and trying to sort of develop that type of emotional intelligence that we don't seem to get enough practice of. There is this desire that we want to do a lot of things in life, but it never happens because we don't give it the time needed. And it comes down to our allocation of time, really. And so if you schedule something, and if you commit to something, especially if you commit to another person, then you're much more likely to do it. So when I sort of said, okay, well, let's kind of figure out what this is all about, I decided to use the show as a sort of practice of it. So, what have I found out now? That's a good question, I have people scheduled up to basically the election, and then I'm running thin. So that's worth talking about. Why do I only have 10 people, right? It's interesting. Maybe the truth is I have 40, and 30 of them I personally don't classify as that, because I don't feel that kind of connection is a potential. And I think that's probably one of the side effects, that even if you acknowledge that I'm going to ignore society's sort of definition of what an emotional connection is, and say, all right, I can have an emotional connection with somebody without dating them, or wanting to run off to a hotel room with them. You're still going to you're still brought up in that milieu, right? So you're still going to not necessarily classify people as on that level, even if they would say yes right away. It's this kind of the unspoken parts of human interaction is that you don't know who your friends are at that level. You know what I mean? It's, if I was hard on my times, I don't know who would loan me some money, right? I don't really know. And I think that's something that people talk about with regard to relationships. You don't know. You're like, oh, I didn't know that you liked me in that way, or whatever it is. But perhaps that works in all ways when you're sort of putting it next to when you're saying that way, because it's not necessarily, again, just for romance. It could be for anything. And I think that we have within our capabilities a much richer, a more sort of constructive well-being, health, and society available, but we don't have the social structure or the practice to really exercise it. And I'm trying to think about, like, as I've traveled around to other countries, I think they're much healthier in that regard than I've seen in the United States. In fact, I would say outside of Los Angeles, people are much healthier. I think that that's kind of culturally an LA and San Francisco thing, is how people do that. And maybe that's part of the sickness. Yeah. I wonder sometimes whether certain cities are better for your personal health than others. Assuming that maybe you have enough money to pay rent or do whatever it is. Is there a distinct cultural difference that makes one a healthier place for a particular person than another? And I really think so. And it kind of goes against the... I'm sorry, I don't have the interlocutor here, so I'm sorry if this is getting a little off topic. But it kind of goes against... Oh, gosh, what was I talking about? I was talking about the See, this is a problem, is I can't remember what I'm saying. I think it's just me getting old. I think this is part of what middle age is about. God, what was it? Interlocutor. No, it was about the let me just get some water. But the health of living in a city, and that there's different kinds of friendships that get developed, and that certain people have certain sort of temperaments for different cities. Yes, is the idea of you can find happiness anywhere, and it goes against that idea, which I don't think is correct. I think that, again, if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we go past the, I can get shelter and whatever, right? And we're going to equivalently comfortable cities, let's just say, London versus Paris or whatever, versus Tokyo or, whatever, these first-class, world-class cities, is that people are different at mostly nonverbal ways, and how they structure society, how they structure relationships, interaction, engagement, how they build foundations of friendship. And I think that we are very starved in... I can only speak to Los Angeles because that's where I live. But I think that maybe as a country, we've become very ill in that situation. And we've been unable to, or we haven't allocated the time or the space or the resources to do that in a collective space. We've become too individualized as a society. That's not a unique observation, but I'm hoping that this kind of thing that I've been doing has sort of chipped away a bit in some people's mind about what I think this should all be about. Because we shouldn't be afraid to think. We shouldn't be afraid to feel. And we shouldn't be afraid to dream. And I know this assumed. I know that we all believe it. But I don't know if we all practice it. I don't know how much time we put into it. And I'd like to put more into all of those. And I think it would make me a better human and make life more worth living. I think it's true for almost everybody, if you will. I guess another thing about this is that I'm not trying to do this in order to create or to really get an audience necessarily. It's more sort of a journal, if you will, for myself, where I can sort of review and sort of see as a documentation of what I was thinking and feeling, what other people were at the time. And I put it out there because hopefully it will help others. But it's first and foremost for myself, I think. And I think it's a valuable thing. Even if it's only for me. I've been trying to do that more often. Just documenting things. So I can look back at myself and reflect upon what I'm doing. Because there's been I think we all have challenges about living in the present and valuing the present moment. And we get lost in our own concepts, our own abstractions, our own sort of thoughts about the future and the past. And we don't live in the now, if you will. And by recording these, by documenting them, by being able to review them, and sort of reflect upon them, I think that this is more helpful for understanding what that is. And hopefully, what I'm doing is coming across as real. And I think that we have a lack of reality and a lack of sort of rawness in all of our interactions and all of the things we happen to consume and do. And everything just seems a little at a distance. And I would like to have, I'd like to reduce that because I don't know if that's a healthy way of being. It feels like you're always a consumer. You're always insulated, and it prevents you from growing as an individual. It prevents you from trying to be. When I say to be, I think it just generally mean, not necessarily one thing, but just a sort of present state, if you will. So yeah, I think that's what I've been doing. I don't know if this is going to be an hour. I don't think I've got much more to say, to be honest with you. I do have some more people scheduled in the future, and hopefully the person I scheduled today I'll be able to do another day. But none of these things have scripts necessarily, so Yeah, I think that's really it. 20 minutes, and that's fine. Okay, well, that's it.